Hello and welcome to whatever the fuck this video is. I figure with this video being pretty successful and my channel blowing up a little bit, I'd go ahead and post the most controversial thing I possibly could. So welcome to a Hollow Knight Charms tier list video. I'll be going over all 45 charms including Voidheart on this list, and I'm rating them based on their versatility both in and out of combat, so just keep that in mind. As with every other tier list on the internet, keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and my opinion is absolutely correct. Let's get on with the list. First up, and the best charm in the game, Wayward Compass. I feel like I don't actually have to describe this one, it's pretty self-explanatory, easy S tier. Next, and perhaps not the best follow-up, is Gathering Swarm. It essentially just collects Geo for you, which isn't very useful anywhere past early game. It does have some early game utility when you don't have all the movement items yet, but after that it's pretty much dead weight. Because of its convenience in the early game, I put it in D tier. It's not quite F because it has uses, but it's pretty limited overall. Stalwart Shell was actually pretty difficult for me to place. At 2 notches, it gives you 35% longer invincibility duration and reduces your stagger time by 60%. It has its uses, but in my experience, it's just not as good as other things you can put on. It is better than other charms though, so I put it in D tier. Now for our first bad charm, we have Soul Catcher. Soul Catcher costs 2 notches and it pulls 3 more soul out of the air on every hit. It doesn't do what it's designed to do, and for 2 notches, there's so many better things I can use. Therefore, Soul Catcher gets an F tier. Something on the more positive side, our next charm is Shaman Stone. Shaman Stone is a fucking charm. If you want spells, this thing makes everything bigger and do more damage. It's one of the most useful charms you can equip on a spell build and is pretty much as good as it gets when it comes to boosting spells. Shaman Stone easily makes its way onto the S tier. Soul Eater is Soul Catcher's quote-unquote upgrade. It costs 4 fucking notches, and what does it do? It goes from 3 soul per hit to an additional 8 soul per hit. Do you know what charm is better than this and costs half the notches? Soul Twister. Soul Eater goes into F tier. Next up is Sans. Next up is Dash Master. Unpopular opinion, but I actually like using this charm. Being faster is just nice sometimes when I'm just messing around in Hollow Nest. The only thing I don't like is the downwards dash. I do it by accident a lot and I'll usually take a hit for it, but that's a skill issue, so I'm putting Dash Master in B tier. Sprint Master, on the other hand, does not have that same versatility. I think it's pretty obvious which tier this one goes into. Grub Song is also difficult for me. While it's 1 notch and slips really easily into most builds, I also just can't think of many situations where I need Grub Song over something else. Grub Song gives you 15 soul upon being hit, which while it's a decent amount, it's not enough to really counter the fact that you just took a hit. It has its uses, so it's not the worst thing ever, but I don't use it too often. I put it high up in the C tier, just below B. Grubberfly's Elegy was not as difficult to place. For 3 notches, Elegy turns your nail into the Master Sword, as in firing a beam when the knight is at full health. When you hear that, you think, oh hey, that sounds decent, and then you put it on, and you remember why you have a nail, or Vengeful Spirit. It's just not as good as pressing the quick cast button and firing something at the enemy that does better damage. Since it has its niche uses, I put it in D tier, but this could just as easily go into F. Fragile and Unbreakable Heart are 2 very good charms. You can't ignore the fact that it gives you 2 more mass and is available at such an early point in the game. Going from 5 or 6 mass to 7 or 8 by the time you reach Leg Eater is absolutely insane. And its only downside being that it breaks when you die is completely nullified in Steel Soul, or by turning Fragile Heart into Unbreakable Heart. It's a very good charm, 8 out of 10, B tier. Fragile and Unbreakable Greed, on the other hand, are not as good. Increasing Geo drop by enemies by 20 to 100%. It's a charm that's only good in early game, and I mean very early game, as in before you've killed any bosses. Once you've gotten some of the stuff that you need to buy, this charm loses its use pretty quick. The 250 Geo it costs is just better used somewhere else, and it's not even worth buying because by the time that you make the Geo back you spent on it, you would have had enough to buy the thing that you want in the first place. It's definitely the worst of the 3 fragile charms, and one of the worst overall charms. so it goes into F tier. Now you want to see the best fragile charm, Fragile and Unbreakable Strength. It's literally the best charm I can think of. It only costs 3 notches and increases nail damage by about 50% or the damage values on screen. 32 damage is enough to kill the majority of smaller enemies in 1 or 2 hits, and it makes boss fights overall way fucking shorter. Once I have this charm, I literally never take it off. It's incredible and an easy S tier charm. The good charms just keep coming, ladies and gentlemen. Now we have my favorite spell charm, Spell Twister. It reduces the cost of spells from 33 to 24, or in other words, 3 casts on a full soul vessel to 4 casts. Easily the best charm when it comes to reducing soul cost, and with Shaman Stone can deal an incredible amount of damage extremely quick. It's one of the best charms, also earning its well-deserved S tier slot. Steady Body is one of the most debated charms in terms of its utility. While I agree that Just Walk Forward is a pretty valid argument a lot of the time, I can't argue with its utility. You won't be able to do this without Steady Body, not as efficiently anyway. It has a decent amount of use, so I'll stick my arm in the fire and I'll put it in B tier. Heavy Blow is just a bad charm. Imagine this. You're fighting the most fearsome boss in the entire game, Primal Aspid, and this fucker is just firing at you from all cylinders while hanging in the air just out of reach. You can't quite get it. It's like that annoying ass fly that won't leave your house, no matter how much you swing at it. Just when you're about to give up like a little bitch with your head in your hands, tears rushing down your face, you get it. You hit that fucker. But oh no, plot twist, you had Heavy Blow on. You knock the Aspid further away from you, putting even more distance between it and you. It keeps firing, and you die because you gave the range enemy more distance to work with. So yeah, bad charm, F tier. Good charm, Quick Slash. I love this shit. I feel more powerful when I use it. I feel like the anime protagonist I always know I was meant to be when I use this. 3 notches, does what it says on the can, quicker nail swings. I love it, I used it in this video, S tier. Moving on to Long Nail, it's also pretty self-explanatory. It's not the worst, but Pride is a better charm, so B. And like I just said, Pride is just a better Long Nail, costing 1 more notch. A tier. Fury of the Fallen is the kind of charm that I wish I could better utilize. Costing 2 notches when you're at 1 mask, Fury increases nail damage by 75%, which does actually stack with strength. This allows for some pretty quick kills, such as this one. So for that, I'm putting it in A tier. Not quite S tier since it requires you to be at 1 mask, which is pretty bad when you're just roaming around Hollow Nest, but overall, it's a very good charm. Thorns of Agony, more like agony when I wear this charm, hey-oh, got him. Anyway, when you get hit, Thorns puts out spikes in a pretty large radius around the knight. They do decent damage, which is equivalent to the base damage of your nail. It's not the worst, but it's certainly not the best. There's better 1-notch charms out there, so for that I'm putting it in D tier. Balder Shell just sucks. It puts a breakable shell around the knight when focusing, which is not great. In situations where you could get hit, you shouldn't be focusing anyway, and those 2 notches could go to something a lot better like Heart. It's just not good, so I'm putting it in F tier. Alright, what's the next charm? We've got Fluke Nest. That seems like a pretty good charm. I don't really, I don't think I gotta explain this one too much, you know. It seems like a good use case scenario or something. you know how it is. Don't ask too much, you know. It's a good charm. I think it's pretty decent. Defender's Crest. I mean, it's just a bad charm. Sorry, Ogrim. Glowing Womb. I think Glowing Womb gets me killed more often than it doesn't. It has very niche uses, like in certain boss fights where you can just cling to the wall, but other than that, it's not great, so it goes into D tier. Quick Focus is a weird one. It essentially makes focusing 33% faster. It can be pretty good in fights where you can squeak out a 2nd mask worth of healing, but otherwise it doesn't really see a ton of use. It has its uses though, so it's going into C tier. Now, Deep Focus, on the other hand, is probably the second worst charm here. Increasing the time it takes you to heal by 65%, Deep Focus allows you to heal 2 masks at once instead of 1. Now, doing some quick math, it's actually pretty equivalent to just heal 2 masks. This is because it's meant to be comboed with Quick Focus so that the focus time for 2 masks is the same as 1 mask. The problem with that is that Quick Focus costs 3 notches and Deep Focus costs 4. That's 7 notches eaten out of a possible 11. And you can do anything else with those 7 notches and it'll be a lot better than what this offers you. Deep Focus is going right into the bottom of F tier. Now, a pretty sweet follow-up by comparison, we've got Lifeblood Heart. Costing 2 charm notches, it just gives you 2 temporary lifeblood masks. It's literally just a worse version of Fragile Heart, but in some situations where Heart is broken and you don't have the money to replace it, this is a suitable substitute. Lifeblood Core is not better, costing 3 notches to give you 4 temporary lifeblood masks. It sounds better, but then you realize that those 3 notches can go to Heart and a 1-notch charm. It's just not good. Not only that, but you can really only get it after getting the much superior Joni's Blessing, which power creeps the hell out of this charm anyway. It's bad, F tier. Speaking of Joni's Blessing, it eats up 4 notches, but it allows for a tank strategy of replacing all of your masks for temporary lifeblood masks. In trade, you gain 40% more masks, which then gets rounded up. It's not bad, but I wouldn't use it over something else, since you can't heal back the lifeblood mask unless you sit at a bench. It's alright though, so it's going in C. Hive Blood. Hive Blood heals the last mask of damage taken over the course of a few seconds. It sounds way better than it is, so to prove my point, I will ask a question to everyone telling me I should have used Hive Blood in Path of Pain. Why the fuck did they put 5 soul totems in Path of Pain if I was meant to use Hive Blood instead? Its only use case is literally nullified by the fact there are soul totems everywhere in the White Palace. Other than that, it's a terrible charm. It doesn't heal all damage taken, just the last damage taken. Do you know what does that but way better? Holding the focus button, F. And as a beautiful follow-up, we've got Spore Shroom. When you do the focusing that you should be doing, you'll release a cloud of spores that slowly damage enemies. That's it. That's the whole charm. Just put on Grubsong or Glory instead if you have a free spot. Spore Shroom also earns itself a sweet F. Now for a real charm, Sharp Shadow. For just 2 notches, you can turn your Shade Dash into a weapon, making the Shade Dash do equivalent damage to your nail, or if you're wearing Dashmaster, 1.5 times your nail damage. The downside to this charm is its effect outside of combat, as it lengthens your dash. A lot of the platforming is designed for just your regular dash, not an extended one. So this messes up some of the platforming segments. It would get an S normally, but that does knock it down to an A in my eyes, but you could easily put this in S. Now for a really weird charm, Shape of Un. Costing 2 notches, this charm lets you become a slug and move around when you focus. While being pretty cool and sometimes pretty useless, there's not a ton of scenarios where I use this charm. I can recognize the fact that it does have uses and also turns you into a slug, so it's going into C tier. Not bad, but it's nothing to celebrate. Nailmaster's Glory is definitely the best 1-notch charm. It reduces nail art charge time by almost half, making them way easier to use in a lot of scenarios. Wearing it and talking to the Nailmasters also unlocks that sweet lore everyone is after. Colosseums are way easier with this charm on since nail arts will kill most base enemies in 1 hit, especially when combined with Strength or Fury. I'm putting it in A tier, not quite S, but a very good charm nonetheless. Weaver Song exists. Summoning small Weaverlings to attack enemies dealing 3 damage and collecting a small amount of soul on hit, they're alright. There's just better 2-notch charms. It's in the same boat as Womb in my eyes, so it's going into D tier. Dream Wielder is one of the more underrated charms in the game. It costs only 1 notch, and it reduces the charge time of the Dream Nail and doubles the soul it collects on hit. It's just a very solid charm and outclasses all of the other soul gathering charms by a long shot, so for that I'm putting it in B tier. Coming up to the final 5, Dream Shield is up next, and damn does this charm also exist. For 3 notches, it creates a shield that spins around the knight and isn't doing anything half the time it's equipped. It's got uses, don't get me wrong, they're just not good uses. So this one sits in D tier. And oh boy, what a follow-up. Grimchild. Defeating Nightmare King Grim unlocks this charm at its full potential. While adorable, it is completely useless, kinda like having a real child. For 2 notches, you can have a questline that either leads to a better charm, or a weapon that's not that good. Carefree Melody is a hotly debated charm. Banishing Grim and talking to Nim Nim gives you this charm. For 3 notches, the charm allows for a chance to avoid taking a hit altogether, with the chance increasing at every hit taken. This gives you an average chance of roughly 22%. While I agree it's not the best charm ever or anything, I would put up the argument that it's better than Grimchild. You get a bro out of it instead of a child, and it's a better charm overall. So it goes into C tier. King Soul, while being a key to unlock a whole fucking ending, really sucks. For 5 notches, you get to constantly gain soul at a rate of 2 soul a second. Absolutely terrible. Not to mention that the charm gets replaced with the next charm in about 6 minutes. It's cool, but it's not useful. F tier. And finally, Voidheart is the key to 3 different endings. Lots of sweet, sweet fucking lore. It also turns you into the Shade Lord, so there's that as well. It's a pretty S tier charm, pretty sick. And so that is my entire tier list. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my list, if you disagree with some of the charms or where I put them. I'm always around reading comments and I always love to see them, so please let me know. That's about all I got. I'm not very good at making endings.